When the clock hit midnight, I was walking slowly through the poorly lit streets, carrying the heavy load of a long night's work. It was very quiet in the city, and the only sound was the flickering of a streetlight every once in a while. A shiver went down my spine as I walked by a shopping mall. Its darkened front looked so scary. At night, the mall looked like a solid rock. The windows reflected the broken light from lamps far away. It looked like it was calling to me and pulling me closer with a strong pull. But along with its attractiveness, there were whispers that there was darkness inside, especially in its famous parking lot. For years, people had been talking about the parking lot and how a terrible accident had left bloody and sad marks on the asphalt. People said that a woman had died there, apparently from something not quite human. Some people said she was killed by a spirit of revenge, while others said it was a more evil force at work. No matter what the truth was, the parking lot had turned into a dangerous place where only the bravest dared to go. In spite of the warnings, I felt a creeping morbid interest that drew me toward the banned area. I walked slowly into the busy mall where the happy chatter of buyers could be heard ringing through the halls. Even though bright lights and lively displays tried to chase away the darkness, the suffocating atmosphere stuck around. I didn't care about the looks people gave me as I walked toward the parking lot door, my heart racing. The air got colder, and there was a strong feeling of fear in the air. As I went deeper into the building, the neon lights above flashed in a scary way, making the shadows on the concrete walls move all over the place. I picked up the pace because I was eager to face whatever was down there. I finally got to the entrance to the scary parking lot. A big metal door stood guard over the unknown. I pushed it open with a shaking hand and stepped into the dark space beyond. The sight that met my eyes made my skin crawl. The parking lot was huge in front of me, with lots of empty spots and dark corners. The air was thick with the smell of gasoline and rot, and a low, sharp wail could be heard all over the huge room. Though I couldn't see them, I could feel evil eyes watching me from the darkness. I felt like I was being watched more as I carefully made my way further into the parking lot. At the edges of my field of vision, shadows seemed to dance, and whispers could be heard in the silence. I tried to get rid of the feeling, but it stuck to me like second skin and made me feel sick in a way I had never felt before. And just as I got to the far end of the parking lot, I saw her. It was the woman from the reports, and a heavenly light was bathing her. She was beautiful and scary at the same time. Her eyes were burning with a fierce ferocity that seemed to go straight to my heart. I stopped moving out of fear as she slowly turned to face me and locked her eyes on mine. There was no sound from her as she slowly moved toward me. Her moves were smooth but unsettling. My legs wouldn't move when I tried to run away. They were stuck in place by an unknown. As she got closer, fear tore at my chest, and her ghostly shape loomed over me like a death spirit. And then, with a scream that made my blood boil, she reached out her hand like claws and put it to my chest. I closed my eyes to get ready for what was going to happen. But when I opened them again, she was gone, like a wisp of smoke into thin air. When I finally made it out of the parking lot and into the safety of the mall, I swore I would never go back to that scary place again. But even now, as I lie awake in the middle of the night, I can still feel her presence in the shadows. It reminds me of the horrible things that are just beyond the edge of our reality. My dreams are always filled with the memory of her scary face, which is a constant warning of the evil that lives inside all of us. In the quiet, mundane world of suburban living, there exists a housing colony like any other. Rows of neatly aligned houses stand under the dim glow of streetlights, casting long shadows across the deserted roads. Among the labyrinthine network of these identical dwellings lies a seemingly ordinary parking lot, innocuously nestled between the buildings. However, beneath its unassuming facade lies a sinister secret that only the bravest dare to uncover. As dusk descends upon the neighborhood, a palpable sense of unease begins to permeate the air. The once bustling parking lot now lies eerily deserted, save for a few scattered vehicles. The street lights flicker ominously, casting an unsettling glow upon the cracked asphalt below. It is said that this parking lot holds a dark history, one that whispers of restless spirits and unspeakable horrors. Legend has it that many years ago, before the colony even existed, this very land was home to a sprawling cemetery. Burial plots stretched as far as the eye could see, housing the remains of countless souls. But as progress marched forward, the cemetery was demolished to make way for the burgeoning housing colony. It was a decision made out of necessity, but one that would have dire consequences. For you see, the spirits of the deceased were not content to rest in peace. Their ethereal forms lingered, tethered to the land by an unbreakable bond, as the colony grew and the parking lot was erected upon their final resting place. Their restless souls grew increasingly agitated. Their whispers echoed through the night, their spectral figures haunting the shadows. It is said that those who dare to venture into the parking lot after dark are met with a chilling sight. Strange apparitions materialize from the darkness, their hollow eyes staring into the souls of any unfortunate souls who dare to cross their path. The air grows cold, and a sense of dread washes over those who find themselves in the presence of these otherworldly beings. As I made my way towards my car, a sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach, like a dark omen warning me of impending danger. Every shadow seemed to dance with malevolent intent, and the faint flicker of the streetlights cast sinister shapes upon the cracked asphalt below. I quickened my pace, eager to escape the oppressive atmosphere that hung heavy in the air. Suddenly, a cold chill ran down my spine as I sensed a presence behind me. My heart pounding in my chest, I turned to find myself face to face with a figure shrouded in darkness. Wisps of ethereal mist swirled around its spectral form, and its eyes bore into mine with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. I tried to scream, to call out for help, but my voice caught in my throat, suffocated by the overwhelming fear that gripped me. The ghostly figure drew closer, its movement slow and deliberate, as if relishing the terror that radiated from my trembling form. With each step it took, the air grew colder, and a sense of dread washed over me like a tidal wave of despair. Desperate for escape, I stumbled backwards, my heart racing as I searched for some means of salvation. But the ghostly apparition remained steadfast in its pursuit, its ethereal form gliding effortlessly through the darkness. I was trapped, ensnared in the clutches of a force beyond my understanding. With a surge of adrenaline, I made a mad dash for my car, my fingers fumbling with the keys as I struggled to unlock the door. The ghostly figure loomed ever closer, its presence suffocating me with its icy grip. But just as it seemed that all hope was lost, my hand found purchase on the door handle, and I flung myself inside, slamming the door shut behind me. Gasping for breath, I fumbled for the ignition, my heart pounding in my chest like a drumbeat of impending doom. And then, with a roar of the engine, I peeled out of the parking lot, leaving behind the haunting memory of my ghostly encounter, though I may never fully understand the true nature of the specter that haunted me that night. One thing is certain, I will never look at that parking lot in the same way again. The night descended upon the city like a thick, suffocating blanket, wrapping the streets in darkness and casting long, sinister shadows that seemed to reach out with clawed fingers. As I approached the garage of my apartment building, a sense of unease settled over me like a heavy fog, chilling me to the bone. The fluorescent lights flickered ominously overhead, casting eerie pools of light that danced and shifted with each passing moment. The air in the garage felt heavy, thick with the weight of unseen eyes watching my every move. With hesitant steps, I ventured deeper into the dimly lit labyrinth of concrete pillars and winding corridors. The sound of my footsteps echoed loudly in the empty space, reverberating off the walls and filling the air with a sense of foreboding. As I reached the end of a particularly dark corridor, a cold breeze swept through the garage, extinguishing several of the flickering lights. I froze in place, my breath catching in my throat as I strained to see through the darkness. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it, a figure standing in the shadows, its features obscured by the gloom. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared, unable to tear my eyes away from the spectral apparition before me. The figure seemed to shimmer and shift, its form wavering like smoke in the wind. I could feel its gaze boring into me, cold and unrelenting, sending shivers down my spine that refused to dissipate. I tried to convince myself that it was just a trick of the light, a product of my overactive imagination running wild in the darkness. But deep down, I knew that what stood before me was no mere illusion. It was something far more sinister, something beyond comprehension. As I stood rooted to the spot, the figure began to drift towards me, its movements slow and deliberate. Panic surged through me, threatening to overwhelm my senses as I frantically searched for an escape route. But the ghostly apparition seemed to anticipate my every move, blocking my path with an otherworldly grace that sent a chill down my spine. Its voice echoed in the recesses of my mind, a haunting whisper that filled me with a sense of dread and despair. With trembling hands, I reached out for the nearest wall, desperate to find something, anything, to anchor me to reality. But the concrete seemed to slip through my fingers like water, leaving me grasping at nothing but empty air. And then, with a sudden burst of movement, the figure was upon me, its icy touch sending shock waves of terror coursing through my veins. I stumbled backwards, my heart racing as I fought to escape the grasp of the ghostly presence that pursued me. With every ounce of strength I could muster, I broke into a run, my footsteps echoing loudly in the empty garage as I sprinted towards the exit. The ghostly figure pursued me relentlessly, its ethereal form gliding effortlessly through the darkness as though it were part of the very shadows themselves. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the encounter was over. I burst out into the cool night air, gasping for breath as I stumbled away from the garage, my heart still pounding in my chest. As I sit in the dim glow of my apartment, the events of that fateful night replay in my mind like a sinister movie, each scene more haunting than the last. Despite the comforting warmth of the room, a chill lingers in the air, a tangible reminder of the terror I experienced in the garage. I can't help but wonder about the nature of the ghostly encounter. What was that ethereal presence, and why did it choose to reveal itself to me? Was it a lost soul trapped between worlds, seeking solace in the darkness of the garage? Or was it something more sinister, a malevolent force drawn to the vulnerability of the living? The questions swirl in my mind, unanswered and unsettling. And as much as I try to push them aside, they linger like a stubborn stain, refusing to be ignored.